This podcast is intended to provide information for educational purposes only and to serve as a starting point for you to have a conversation with your personal physician. Nothing stated on this podcast should be considered medical advice. Consult with your physician before undertaking or changing any treatment plan.
Bananas are demonized, right?
Totally.
People fear eating bananas.
I think bananas, a lot of people are like into this liquid IV and these electrolyte supplements. To me, the answer is water plus a banana. Episode 44, Zoe.
Here we are.
Here we are. Gut instincts. Can endoscopy fix weight regain after stopping GLP-1 meds?
Well, that'd be good.
I mean, this is the $1 million question, right? I mean, the number of times I had patients coming in and they're like, I want the meds. And I'm like, okay, you probably have to take them for the long run.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't want that.
Right.
So, I mean, everybody out there wants this situation where they can take the meds, lose the weight,
and then be done with it.
And then be done with it. I don't know that we're going to get there.
Yeah, I've had a couple people come to me and say, I want to do it for 3 months, see how much weight I can get off. And then I'm like,
yeah, 90% regain. That's what most of the data is showing us.
Right. So what do we have for In the News?
So our In the News segment is about, where the title comes from, and it's from MSN. And it's about this company called Fractyl, F-A-R-C-T-Y-L. They just got FDA breakthrough device status for something called Revita. And it was actually approved for the purpose of weight loss maintenance in patients who have stopped GLP-1 meds.
Very specific. Must have just been very recently emerging.
I think when they put these things through the FDA, they're always looking for their angle, their new approach. And with the economic burden of GLP-1 meds, the shortage, all of these things, they've kind of, to some degree, created a little bit of a health crisis. And so when you can solve a health crisis, the barrier for approval of FDA approved things is going to be substantially lower. We saw this with COVID. When COVID came out, it was like, it took absolutely nothing to get any kind of breathing device, ventilator, anything pushed through the FDA because they were like, we could need, a million a million more ventilators than we have if this is going to work. And so they were just like, whatever, floodgates open. We'll try anything. We'll leave it up to anything that can help meet this need. So the FDA definitely looks at the overall healthcare system when it's approving things. So my suspicion is someone very clever kind of saw this as an opening.
Right.
So this is it's an endoscopic device. They kind of put you to sleep a little bit, and they put a scope through your mouth, pass the scope through the esophagus into the small intestine, and the thing I didn't like about this is they talk about this overgrown mucosa in the duodenum. The duodenum or the duodenum, depending on how you want to say it and how fancy you want to be, is the very first portion of the small intestine, right after the stomach empties. It goes right into this, and it's a very specialized portion. It's where your pancreatic enzymes come in, where your bile comes in, and so they say that there's overgrown mucosa, the lining in that area of the duodenum. Now, I have done 10,000 endoscopies on patients pre and post-op after surgery. I mean, I think. Anyway, I do a lot of these things. I've seen the duodenal mucosa many, many times, and I've seen it in patients suffering from obesity. I've never really noticed any difference between those patients and other patients. You got celiac disease, it looks a little different. You can see, but so I don't know where they're coming from that. That to me, and they've on their website, they've got pictures of like a thick lining versus a thin lining in a normal person. Or I think they also targeted type 2 diabetes. They said with diabetes, you get this overgrown mucosa. That is a new one to me, and I feel like I should know that. You know? So
I was going to ask you if you could visually see a difference, but it sounds like no.
I mean, the 5,000 times I've looked at it, I've never noticed that, but maybe I missed something. I don't know. But their data actually isn't terrible. So they showed in type 2 diabetics, and we've talked a lot, diabetes makes it harder to lose weight. They showed 3.4% total body weight loss that was maintained and actually increased to 4% at 48 weeks after the treatment.
Wow.
So, and they didn't do lifestyle intervention. So they're just like, I'm going to burn your duodenal mucosa, and we're going to see what happens.
That's so
No diet. Yeah.
interesting.
And they lost some weight. So, you always got to wonder about the industry sponsored studies, and
Well,
these
true.
things need to be validated. But that to me caught my attention. I thought that was pretty decent. And I think, again, when I'm looking at stuff, I always want to, it always needs to make sense to me. When it's totally random and out there, I always doubt it. So a gastric bypass bypasses the flow of food through, we bypass the duodenum.
Mm-hmm.
And so is it possible that by ablating that mucosa, it kind of creates that bypass-like effect?
Right.
And so, this thing is interesting to me. And I think the idea of, some type of anatomic manipulation as an adjunct to GLP-1s, I mean, what I think about surgery and the meds. And so what can we do? Like what are options that can potentially, if not eliminate the need to continue to take meds, at least give people, hey, you're going to get a 6-month holiday, and then you'll take them again for a few months. And then, that all sounds really interesting. And I wonder what we're going to come up with and what treatments will be available for that.
Yeah, well, it sounds like, you potentially will be learning a new skill while you're already down in there.
We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite ready to sign up for the trial. Here's my concern. I have two concerns. The first is you can perforate.
Mm-hmm.
You're burning that mucosa. It's, the duodenum is thin.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a thick structure. The stomach is actually pretty thick. And, sometimes believe me, I make holes in the stomach all day long. It sometimes it's a little tricky. Like you got to try, and it's thicker. It takes some time. The duodenum, man, it doesn't take much to make a hole in that. It's a much thinner structure. And so I worry about perforation, and perforation of the duodenum is a big deal. Like that's not, you can patch it and there's a surgical solution for it, but that's not going to be a fun month or two for you. And so that to me is like, you're going into a very dicey area. The bile duct's there, the portal veins there, the hepatic artery is there, the pancreatic duct is there. Like that is tiger country when it comes to surgery. And so I worry about just kind of burning that area over and over again. The second thing I worry about is that this essentially, could create chronic inflammation or a chronic ulcer of the duodenum. And that's a problem. That's a disease state that we treat. And so I think, we need to know a lot more about this before it comes out. But the data, their initial data is good, and it's an interesting concept. And the idea of an endoscopic treatment to prevent, to allow people to stop GLP-1 meds, that worked, man. That'd be great.
Well, it'll be interesting to see as we hopefully get more research about it.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So what do we have for our nutrition segment, Zoe?
All right. Well, we're going to... The reason why we have this nutrition segment is because last week I got my grocery delivery. I actually
You love that delivery.
Well, it's because I don't have any flipping time to go to the grocery store.
I get it.
So I'm very grateful that has been a tool that I've been able to not only help patients implement, but I've actually now, and I love going to the grocery store.
Yeah, I love it.
I really do.
love it.
But it's just not something I've been able to make time for recently.
Right.
So anyway, I ordered 5 bananas.
Okay.
And I got 15. I got 3 bunches of 5 bananas.
Bonus.
Yeah, I was like, all right, well, we're doing a lot of banana
we're
stuff.
Eating bananas. Okay.
So anyway, I thought it would be interesting to talk a little bit about how bananas are demonized, right?
Totally.
People fear eating bananas. And I get it. There's a lot of sugar in bananas, but it's the natural sugar. So let's first talk about what's the difference between added sugar and natural sugar. And I think we've talked about this before, but the main pieces of it is natural sugars from whole foods. You're getting a lot of other good nutrition. You're getting fiber, you're getting phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, right? You're getting other ingredients, if you will, that your body has a job for, right? Added sugar, it's just sugar. Whatever's extra is going to be stored for later, aka fat.
Yeah.
So basically, if you're craving sugar or you're craving desserts, don't completely not have any sugar. Maybe lean more towards the natural sugar and in the case of today, let's talk about ways to use banana.
Perfect. You got 15 of them.
Yeah,
You
well,
got 10 extra bananas.
right, exactly. So frozen bananas are always a staple in my freezer. You can pop them into a smoothie.
Huh. You peel them first?
Yes, I've made the mistake
Yeah.
one time of just, all of these bananas are bad. I'm just going to pop them in the freezer.
Peel doesn't slide off so
Oh,
easily.
no. That was a disaster.
And then you melt it and that's mush, right?
It's so
Yeah. That's a mistake you make once.
So frozen bananas can go in smoothies or like a little dessert like milkshakes with a frozen banana,
Right.
some cocoa powder, some Greek yogurt, almond milk, peanut butter. You got a delicious dessert, but it's also no added sugar. You're
Yeah.
getting protein, very nutritious. You can make nice cream.
Yep.
One of your favorite things.
One of my favorites.
I like slicing I shouldn't do that on the table. Slicing bananas first, putting them on a wax paper lined cookie sheet or parchment paper lined cookie sheet, little smear of peanut butter, little dusting of cocoa powder, freeze it so that they individually freeze, and then you can store it in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. But just one little, it's cold, it's creamy, it's chocolatey, it's
When you
very
freeze
satisfying.
a banana, it has a texture of ice cream.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
But then also mashed banana can go great in making, if you're wanting to make some sort of baked good alternative, that is a great way to
Yeah, I've
add
seen that a
sweetness.
lot.
You swap that out for the sugar and the oil because you're getting the moisture, but you're also getting
Yeah.
the sweetness. So anyway, bananas are great. Don't be afraid of eating bananas. And if you're given 15 bananas, you're going to be making a lot of banana stuff.
Yeah. I think bananas, a lot of people are like into this liquid IV and these electrolyte supplements. To me, the answer is water plus a banana.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you look at tennis players are like, tennis players, they don't get like, they got to bring their own food. People can't bring them stuff. They don't have a coach there. They can really have very limited, like when you're playing tennis, you're on your own. You got to, you carry your own bag in, right? And so tennis players are famous for using bananas as a snack. And they'll bring in a bunch of bananas through the match, and they drink water. They have their electrolyte solutions too. I mean,
Right.
Listen, if you're playing tennis in 90-degree heat for 5 hours, you can drink electrolyte solutions with sugar. I'll give everybody permission to do that. But banana is really kind of a staple of their nutritional plan for getting through the match.
Electrolytes and quick digesting carbohydrates.
Exactly. All right, let's move into our economics of obesity segment. And this isn't so much about obesity, but it does impact all of us, I think. And the question I'm going to ask is, why is it so hard to find a doctor these days?
I don't know, but it sure is.
I mean, it really is difficult.
Wait
And
list super long.
the wait list, I mean, it's not crazy to call a doctor and be told our next opening is in 6 months. Right? So how did we get here? People criticize Canada because, the wait list. We got them now too. We got major wait lists. We got wait lists for surgeries. We got wait lists to see doctors. I think we've managed in our practice to keep our appointment time relatively short. We can usually get to people within a few weeks. But there's a real issue with this. So we see shortages of pulmonologists, psychiatrists, big time.
Big time.
ENT, I have a friend who's an ENT. He's booked out for 6 months. Neurosurgeon, primary care doctors. When I moved to Tucson, I'm in the medical community. It took me 3 months to get a PCP. Mm-hmm. So rheumatology, almost impossible to get in with a rheumatologist these days. Endocrinology, OBGYN. We have pregnant women looking for a doctor, getting like, they test positive. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to the OB. Oh, we can get you in 3 months. Isn't there something that's supposed to happen in these next 3 months? I mean, it's really getting a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
The question is why? What's caused this change? And I think there's a couple of issues. I think, we've talked a lot about insurance companies. United Healthcare is the ninth largest company in the world. these insurance companies have needed to continue to grow profits. If you look at the stock prices of these companies, it's been astronomical. The CEOs' bonuses are directly tied to the stock price. And so there's just a huge push for insurance companies to continue to profit. The problem is it's not unlimited. You cannot just keep making more money on healthcare. There's only a certain amount of healthcare that needs to be performed. There's a real pressure to reduce costs. Employers have kind of hit the end point where they can't afford to pay more for health insurance. And so what we've seen is that insurance companies have now worked to try to reduce rates. And we've seen this in our own practice. We have a couple of payers who are offering us, in all honesty, less money than I was paid 10 years ago for the same procedures.
Wow.
Probably 20 or 30% less. And so if you look at what's happening in every business, costs are increasing dramatically.
Yeah.
And so employee wages are going up, costs of goods are going up, rent is going up, so costs of providing services have gone up, the reimbursement has gone down, and we've kind of hit this tipping point where there's doctors are less willing to see all of these patients, and they're starting to opt out of insurance networks. And so you'll see, you might have Aetna, Cigna, United, and you've been like, oh, I've always been able to see whatever doctor I wanted. And we're now starting to see these physicians, if you're booked out for 6 months and an insurance company offers you a small amount of money, what are you going to say? You're going to say, sorry, I got plenty of patients. I don't need your patients. I can reduce that. That actually, you're solving a problem now as opposed to causing one. And so I think that the net result here, unfortunately, is that we're going to see that people will have a limited choice in physicians. And that your Blue Cross card, your Aetna card, your United card, which has uniformly in the past allowed you to see whatever doctor you wanted, you may not have that option. You may start calling up and finding out, oh, we don't take Aetna, we don't take Cigna. And I think we'll see it with Aetna and Cigna before we see it with United and Blue Cross, because Aetna and Cigna pay less typically than Blue Cross and United. And so I think this is a real problem, because especially people will have relationships with doctors, and they may all of a sudden out of the blue get a letter that says, hey, sorry, we're not taking your insurance anymore.
Right.
And so the question is, what can you do in that setting? The first thing you should do is call your insurance company and complain. No question, because if you don't call your insurance company and complain, and if you don't call your HR department and complain and say, hey, listen, I don't know what's going on. We need to put some pressure on our insurance company in order to let them know, hey, listen, you have to come up with some more favorable contracts with physicians so that we can have more docs in network. Then the insurance companies will continue to do what they're doing. So there has to be some pressure there. So that's the first thing. The second thing, especially if it's kind of more of a cognitive specialty, like you just need an office visit. You don't need a procedure from them. You don't need a bunch of testing through their office. Then you can just reach out to the doctor and get a self-pay price.
Yeah.
And you may find, especially if you're an existing patient, it's very likely you can get a visit with your doctor for under $100. And with copays being sometimes $50 or even $75,
Right.
it's not a huge difference. And you may even be able to receive some reimbursement back from your insurance company as an out-of-network payment. So you may actually get some of that money back. And so I think the first thing is just see what you can do. There may be an option to continue to work with that physician out of network. And especially, most of these doctors aren't doing it out of greed, but are really doing it out of survival.
Necessity,
yeah, out of necessity, out of survival. And so I think you'll find that a lot of doctors will be willing to work with you and come up with something very fair and reasonable. It may be more expensive than you have, paid in the past, but certainly not, astronomically high. I think that problem will likely work its way out. And I think, honestly, the more market forces and the more directly people pay for their healthcare, the more we'll see a reduction in healthcare costs. So to me, that doesn't seem like a terrible, awful thing to come from this. It may actually help put some pressure on insurance companies to maybe lean up a little bit and direct more of their costs to patient care. So anyway, another good episode, Zoe.
Yes, very good. And we hope you enjoyed it. If you have any feedback for us on our new podcast style, the shortened episodes, please let us know.
Please follow us on social media. Reach out to us if you have questions that you'd like to be answered on the podcast. Send them over, and we'll do our best to get to them as soon as possible.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.